Welcome to Podaholiks. My name's James Piecowye. This is the We Will Fix It show with Colin Thomas from We Will Fix It Dubai, Essential Maintenance Dubai. You know, look, if you've got some DIY projects on the way, if you've got something that needs to be fixed, Colin and his team are the folks to be talking to. And Colin and his team are the We Will Fix It podcast, which means we're going to be talking DIY and more as we do on this show. Colin, great to have you back, as always.
Always good. Do you know what number this one is, James?
I stopped keeping track, but www.podaholiks.com is now where all of our shows are. And what I will do after this show is I have gone through all of our podcasts now and relabeled them. So if you go to that site and you go and you type in We Will Fix It, all one word, every single episode comes up all in one place.
See, I have been, and it looks fantastic. Well done, well done. That's Andrew involved with that one, wasn't it?
That's Andrew took the lead on that and finally pulled
great job
out.
he did.
Yeah, so I like it because it's all in one place. So it's really, pretty darn easy. So what I'll do is, and I stopped counting after one point. I need to go back and do the count of all the shows. I know that we're up past 150 episodes in total, but I think we're somewhere around 41 on this one. But you know what? I will count them up and we'll know for next week.
You know what, James? You should be incredibly proud of that. It is quite an achievement. I know that we sit here every week, but for us, it's like therapy. For you, it is just a wonderful thing that you are providing this. And I'm very proud of it, without a doubt. And I hope without a doubt, you are too.
You know what? I just think it's a lot of fun. And as I keep saying to people, it's just downright honest content. And I know people say, what do you mean it's honest content? I said, we don't have a marketing team who's standing behind us saying, oh, no, you got to talk this way. Oh, no, you got to talk that way. You know, obviously the We Will Fix It team brings together the things that are going on in your world. And you know that from the calls that are coming in. So we tailor the talks around that angle, but we don't have, you know, your marketing folks aren't leaning over and saying, hey, make sure you talk about this, make sure you talk about that. We just talk about the stuff that's going on. And I know we got a 10 minutes with Colin. I know we're going to be talking about AC, but I got to share this one with you because this is why you listen to these podcasts. So I have this water pump issue. And we've been talking about this for a long time, and we talked about the pump on the roof, and we finally sorted out that what I have and the way it works is the way it is going to work forever. So that's fine. But I had a second issue, and I'd never sent you the picture of the pump, but I have this pump, and upon careful re-examination of the pump, I am certain that it was not a brand new pump they put in. Like there's just no way that it could have been brand new. In fact, it might have been a rebuild. It might have been something that didn't work somewhere else. And the reason I thought that is the pump is now at least a year old, maybe a little bit more. And there's two colors of paint on the housing body where clearly it's been patched up a little bit. And I'm going, yeah, that's just wrong.
That is not good.
No, but the best part is what's been happening with the pump is, so the pump loads from the ground tank, sucks the water, puts it up on the roof. But I have a valve where I can water the grass just after the pump. And so when I turn on the pump, the water comes out of the valve. Excellent. It gives me nice pressure. It works really well. For 20 years, it's worked really well. They changed this pump, and now it doesn't work so well. What happens is the pump overheats. And eventually there must be a solenoid in the pump, and eventually it turns off until it cools down, and then it'll restart again. Well, of course, the repair guys don't believe me, right? It's like, that's just not happening. So finally, they came back yesterday after I've been sending them messages saying, dude, you got to come and see this because it's doing it. So I wait for them to come. I make sure the tanks are all filled, and then I turn it on and start watering. I said, look, it's going to take 15 minutes, so go sit under a tree. And lo and behold, 15 minutes in, the pump fails. And then, and I say, it'll be off for 5 minutes and maybe 10 minutes, and then it'll come back on. And I said, I don't mind it doing this, but if I'm not home and I've got a gardener doing this, he's going to freak out. He doesn't want to spend another bunch of minutes waiting. And I said, what happens if this ultimately fails? And so what did the guys want to do? So they're going to come and replace the pump, supposedly. That's what they say. Well, but they called me and
that pump they replace it with.
Darn right. I'll be sending you pictures. But the best part is, what do you think they actually wanted to do, Colin? In your best estimation of people who repair water issues in the Emirates, what do you think these guys wanted to do? They had a great solution for me.
I think that they would probably have wanted to take your pump away for another repair and leave you with no water in the meantime.
One step better, they wanted to just run directly to DWA. Forget the pump and just run directly to DWA up onto the roof. And I said, you've got to be out of your mind. He said, no, there's 6 bars pressure coming off DWA. It's more than enough. I said, no.
Okay, so let's put that into kind of standard context. So DWA, so your pump, first of all, a good pump can actually, at full power on when it's brand new, could probably hit just about 6 bars from a pump. If DWA were providing 6 bars, then DWA, or consistently providing 6 bars, then DWA would state to everybody in Dubai, no need for pumps anymore, chaps. We'll fund you all directly with water, and there's no need for any pumps whatsoever. However, what DWA says is, whatever you do, do not connect to DWA directly. You must have a tank and you must have a pump. And the simple reason for that is because the standard pressure for DWA is anywhere between 0.5 bar and 1 bar, rather than 6 bars. Now, there is the odd property that happens to be located in exactly the right location based on the DWA substations, or however they actually do it, which, to be honest, I don't really know too much about that side of things. Which, if they were, for instance, at the bottom of a hill and the substation or supply location was much higher, you might get that gravitational effect that would give you more than the 0.5 bar to 1 bar. But that's only at a certain moment. And the rest of the time, you would get much less.
Yeah.
Now, the way that water works is you have the concept of head length, which is the distance that water can basically go up in the air. Now, if you imagine, and the further up that it goes, the less pressure it's given. So let's imagine that we started off at 1 bar at ground level. When you basically get to a height, and again, I don't know the specifics on this, but when you get to a height from 1 bar, if you are really lucky, you'll end up at a dribble. And the way you can kind of roughly test that is when people have within their homes a pump failure and they put it on the bypass, ground floor level is normally okay-ish. If you go upstairs at that moment and you try and turn on your taps or a shower, for instance, you get a dribble. You get nothing. Yeah. So imagine your scenario. You're 1 floor higher than that on the roof.
Yeah.
So I don't fancy their chances on making that one work, James.
No, I agree with you. And when they proposed it, I said, no, this is not going to happen. It just does not work. And A, we've spoken about it, but B, just the physics of it didn't work for me. And I said to the guys, actually, I said, look, I have a direct to DWA outlet on the wall. It's in the line before it gets to my tank, and that's coming from DWA. And I said, and I turned it on. I said, look at the pressure. How is that going to get on the roof? And I said, and this is midday. I said, imagine in the morning, imagine at night. And the 2 repair guys, they were keen. They said, yeah, I get it. It was the guy in the office who was trying to push this. And I just said, look, you know what? Let's just put a new pump on and let's be done with it. And this time put the right pump in. Don't put one of these, whatever you did last time, because the 2 guys were on the phone with them and they knew, like they're looking at it. They're feeling it. They're looking, you could hear them talking. And I just went, yeah. It's like, it was cringeworthy. Painful, isn't it, sometimes with suppliers here? It's no surprise that as an industry, actually I was dealing with this just 5 minutes ago, it's no surprise as an industry that we have such a horrific reputation, is it? Because we are surrounded by bodge job artists. I know on the whole, your landlord's been pretty decent. Yeah. No, and I got to say, I got to say that, if he's listening to the podcast, he has done great work, and we've been with him for 20 years. We've gone through, though, I've got to say, we've gone through a variety of, he's obviously changed to different repair companies through his management company over the years. And we've gone from bad to pretty good to okay. And so I'd love him to go back to the pretty good, but I don't know. We'll see. This is another year of contract renewals, so we'll see what that holds.
Yes, fingers crossed. And again, send me that picture pretty much as they arrive.
Yeah.
Once they fitted it. And I should be able to give you a pretty good indicator pretty quickly, I think.
All right. Well, so we'll do that. But you were talking about the industry itself and just the challenges that you face because your guys at WeWillFixIt and Essential Maintenance, they're going to go into a house, into an apartment, and the bodge jobbers have already been there. So instantly people are looking at you with skepticism.
I mean, it really is so prevalent that anywhere between 20 and 30% of our work is repair work from bodges.
Wow.
So as a result of that, it's that for me is the worst kind of work, because our customers have already paid somebody to solve their problem. And actually they've created more problems than they started with. And for me, we want to be good value. We're not the cheapest, let's be honest. I'm paying my guys more because they're qualified. We are insured. We have a whole support team that's there just to get parts in place. We've got bookings teams that are Western, because that way we can guarantee that the level of service that we've been giving at the start when Dan and I were on the phones between 2008 and 2011 is kind of maintained. But the truth is that comes with a price. Yeah. And, I had somebody who posted on Facebook today saying, oh, I've got this great guy who's very, very cheap for handyman work, and you all should be using him. And so my simple questions was, first of all, is he legal? Does he have a trade license? And secondly, if he burns your house down, is he insured? And, silence.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. Even if he has a trade license, which, that's a little bit more feasible just because it's so difficult to work without one, then if he wasn't insured, then should the worst happen, you're not covered. You're not covered in that scenario because it's a third party that has created the issue and you've employed that third party. So your own home insurance, if you have it, would not cover you in that situation. And a landlord would claim that it is your fault as a tenant, if you are a tenant, because it was down to you that this issue occurred.
Do you have any sense of how many folks are out there doing repairs, even just in a guesstimation, without insurance?
90 to 95%.
Wow. That's scary. Yeah. That is absolutely scary.
There's a simple reason, which is everybody is focused on that price point and trying to be a bit cheaper than the next cheapest guy. And therefore, when you throw in the cost of insurance onto the job, which in effect has to be passed on to the customer and the job, that then puts them higher than the guy that doesn't have insurance. So they make the choice that if they're going to go for the cheapest possible price, and that is the way that they're going to get their business, then they don't really have that option to go fully above board and insured.
That's really frightening, actually, and frightening, as you said, because of the potential for things to go wrong. Just talking with the guys who were coming to my place yesterday through my landlord, they said they are absolutely jammed, and you were talking about the same thing with you guys over at WeWillFixIt. These guys yesterday, they said they're from the moment they get up till they drop at the end of the day, and I can't remember what time he said he worked till. But just in conversation, he said, we have so much work right now, we're running our tails off.
Yeah, we are the busiest that we've been probably in 18 months right now. To give you an idea, right now we're on Tuesday, and currently, apart from our emergency work, because no matter what, for essential maintenance annual maintenance contract arm, we need to be capable of responding and attending to our annual customers within 90 minutes, which we always can do. But outside of that commitment to those customers, we're currently booking 6 days in advance as of this morning.
That's amazing.
It's worrying.
What do you think has led to this, Colin? Is it the fact that people have just been home longer, they've used more of their facility, they've put off getting repairs because of jobs? It's all the above.
All of the above. Also, as you know, we started offering a free disinfection service for the areas where we're working within a property so that people have that peace of mind. That's on top of all the standard health and safety that everybody's doing with COVID-19. But we added that in as an additional peace of mind for people that we will not be bringing anything into their homes. And it's resonated massively. So for us, we are just flying at the moment. It's wonderful. I'm not complaining at all. The only kind of downside of it is we can't be as responsive as we normally are for the majority of non-emergency annual customers.
Well, hey, you know what? This is the world we're in, and at least you guys are making the plan, and away we go.
Great problem to have.
It is.
It is a great problem to have. But we, like many other businesses, have staff stuck all over the world. People who were on vacation at the time of the lockdown. We've got people in the Philippines. We've got people in the UK. All of whom are literally stuck there, unable to get back and join us. And, in truth, we desperately need them.
Yeah.
It would be, we'd do anything to get those guys just back and operable.
That's one of those things when we talk about the COVID-19 and everything that has happened around it. I realize that people are stuck out of country, and I read about it and I hear about it and I hear you talk about it, but it never really sunk in on how big of an issue that actually is. And especially if people were on, they were on their legitimate leave and we'll be back in 2 weeks or a month, and they are literally stuck somewhere and can't get back. And it's one thing for them, but it's another thing for the industries that they're part of. And this knock-on effect is just downright scary.
Yeah, it is. We're pretty good at modeling demand these days. So we do have emergency slots that we put in. So we've gone COVID-19, the whole plan of it is stabilized somewhat. So in previous episodes, I've been talking about the fact that we're having daily COVID-19 meetings. What's changed today? How much trouble are we in? What do we need to get approved? How do we get access? How do we get through people's doors? All this kind of stuff, which is now stabilized. But instead, the daily meeting now is, right, what level of demand are we at? How much are we turning away? And there's a lot of work that we have to turn away. There's just no way of handling it right now. What can we mitigate? Where's the demand on every single element, every single service that we do? Are there people that are cross-trained that we're able to use in the busy areas and maybe run up a little bit more of a tail in that particular service to help the other one? But are they specialists in what they do? If they're not, then again, in the other service, are they fully signed off? Have they been fully through our training process? Because if they haven't, there's no way that we're going to let our quality slip. So these are now where that daily meeting is to work out, okay, how can we mitigate this demand as much as we possibly can, so that we're able to get to people just as quickly as possible?
It adds a whole new dimension to the business. And, 18 months ago, you never would have thought you'd be having these conversations. It really changes the way you start modeling what you're doing, which, adds more time, more places where you've got to make more contact, and gets in the way of the day-to-day, in a sense, of just getting down and doing the job.
Yeah. No, there's the other aspect too, which is kind of the human aspect. Our families, wider families, have been affected just as badly as everybody else's. I've got family that have been laid off. I've got family that have been furlonged, or whatever the local equivalent of that is. I've got friends that are worrying about whether or not they're going to be in the UAE in 3-4 months' time, because there's a very good chance that their whole livelihood has been decimated. Yeah.
That one, I find that one absolutely frightening, is as things start to open up. And I've heard, I hear from, through the grapevine, through, in fact, through one of the bakers that we talk to, who provides a lot of supplies to some of the big hotels. And he's saying, look, they're getting ready to start again, but it's not starting. He said, you won't recognize the restaurants. He said they don't look the same. They've social distanced within them. The recreation areas are social. All of that has been put in place. They are totally. He said they're night and day from what you remember 2 months ago. And I keep looking at this going, as you're talking about, it's like, okay, hold on a second. Now we're going to need less staff. We're going to have less people coming in. Can your franchised restaurant continue to function as it did with half the seating available? And can you make that revenue?
It's 30%, isn't it, James?
Or maybe it is. Yeah, 30%. So
But yesterday, you hear that Ras Al Khaimah hotels have now opened.
Yes,
so they've already gone for it. There is, and like you say, I've heard exactly the same things with for the rest of the UAE, but we'll just have to wait on time frames.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, and the most difficult thing is the conversation that happens, and I genuinely don't want to kind of tell people, well, actually, we are crazy busy. Business is great. Yeah. When they're going through it to this degree, and there's almost a guilt that both Dan and I are feeling when those conversations are kind of happening. But I've got to take the personal perspective of it is wonderful that we're able, literally, we have our guys on every bit of overtime that they are prepared to do. And it's important to state, actually, that as a company, we've always had a requirement that overtime will only ever be optional. We will never require it. But luckily, after the period where we've been very open with the staff, when the early parts of COVID were going on, we were saying, guys, look, we don't know what's going to happen here. This is what we know right now, and it doesn't look good. Well, now, thank goodness, they understand that while there is that demand, we need to make hay, and we need to make hay now because we don't know what's around the corner. And to a man and to a woman, they've been utterly wonderful with us to work that overtime and make sure that we're in as strong a position as we can be.
Which is very nice. I mean, that says a lot about a business, doesn't it? And the family nature of it when you get behind and realize, you've got to do the repairs and you've got to have all the contacts and you got to have all the behind the scenes, but that only happens with the people. And if you don't have a great working environment and a great commitment from a staff, then your business, you can have as much business as you want. It's going to falter. So that's a great testament.
It's for us, it was a very clear one quite early on that we have to tell our staff the negatives as well as the positives. It's nice to kind of go along in a blinkered manner, and in the background everything's going a bit wrong. You're telling all the staff everything's okay. Yeah. What we've found is we have to take a really honest approach with people, and we have to tell them what we know in a clear manner without all of the guff that's coming in our direction of false news here and the little blips, and give people as much accurate information as we can, positive and negative, so that they can buy into what we're trying to do. And that's really been the key, I think, over this crisis, which is letting people know so that they can buy into the route that we're doing, and to understand that what's good for the company is good for them personally too, and to demonstrate that all the way through.
There we go. Colin, we need to kick into 10 minutes with Colin. Yes, so let's roll that. Here we go.
10 minutes with Colin.
This is the part of the show that everyone sits and waits for. What will Colin have for us this week?
Everyone sits and waits for this. My wife certainly doesn't. We've had this discussion before, and literally, you have never seen an eye roll like she does whenever this subject of 10 minutes for you just to go on. What is wrong with people? That is her perspective. But she's from Yorkshire in the UK, and anybody who knows about Yorkshire people knows that they are blunt. Blunt as the bluntest, non-sharpened ever knife that you've ever seen. So she kind of, one way or the other, no matter whether you give me this ridiculous platform for a 10-minute rant or not, she will put me in my place, and there's no chance of a big head resulting. Here goes. It's going to be water, but it's not just going to be pump water. It's going to be water, and when it all goes wrong today. So there's two main scenarios, I think, with water which are negative. First of all, no water. Second of all, a big leak when you least want it. And this is something that Dan, my business partner, experienced just a week or so ago. And what happened for him was he was working in his office, and he shouldn't do because he was working on a day off. And he was there busy on the laptop, and then suddenly he heard a dripping noise. And that dripping noise suddenly got to kind of a little bit more than a drip before he broke off and went, what is happening here? And he literally had water coming through his ceiling. So he ran out, shouted to Tina, his wife, and said, there's something wrong. Something's going on upstairs. So they both ran up the stairs to be met by a torrent of water coming down the stairs in the opposite direction. And what had happened was quite a new toilet spray that they had.
This is the hose we're talking about, right? The one that you use to just...
Shatter. Yeah. That's what people call it locally, isn't it? A shatter. And basically it had ruptured inside the hose. They'd had a rupture and they'd left it turned on, which many people do. So it was pressurized water that was coming from an upstairs bathroom that had gone out from the bathroom. It had gone along the corridor, soaked the carpet in their daughter's room, and then ended up coming down the stairs. Okay? Now, the only benefit of this situation was, or the only positive side rather, was the fact that they were both home. Imagine that scenario where either they weren't home or in the pre-COVID era, they had gone on holiday, okay? Now, we've had that scenario in the business, and I think I've mentioned it once or twice before, where a property in Jumeirah Islands here in Dubai had been unoccupied for, I think it was a month or so before the occurrence happened. And the only time that they actually knew there was an issue was when the water was coming down the driveway and the next door neighbor alerted the owner in the foreign country. Thank goodness they at least had the number. Yeah. And then they turned it off. When we were called, we kind of thought this might be quite a bad one from what we were being told. But we met the owner who'd literally come back from the airport and hadn't been in yet. They decided to go in with us. So what we said to them was, open the door, but we had all the breathing apparatus with us. So don't come in with us initially. Let us just take a quick look and then we'll let you in if we think it's safe. We walked in and everything, walls and ceiling, was black with mold. Wow. It was something I haven't seen since my days of working at PlayStation, and people used to come to us with kind of the horror story games with ghouls and all the rest of it coming out of the walls, you know. Yeah. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it before or since. And what happened there was similar to Dan's. A toilet hose had ruptured in the master bathroom, which was the furthest along the corridor upstairs from the staircase. So it had soaked every room upstairs. It had then gone down the staircase. There was a lip to the front door. So it actually raised up to a level on the ground floor before it finally went under the door and along the driveway.
Wow.
So we literally went in, saw the scale, found the location where the problem had been, and literally went, this is way beyond anything that any maintenance company would be able to do. This is every little bit of an insurance job, and until anyone has full breathing apparatus on, and in fact, full hazmat, nobody should be going in this property. The estimation, and we literally just rough estimated it, was we thought anywhere between 700,000 to potentially 1 million to put that over a part that had gone wrong with a value of about 100 dirhams.
That is absolutely incredible. Do you think, generally speaking, and again, this goes back to Dan as well, that we just underestimate the possibility of some of these things failing? And Dan's was pretty new. Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's one of those things that you don't think about. If you don't have water coming through your ceiling, you're not even going to think that you've got a water heater up there. If the toilet spray is not leaking, you are not going to think that's even a possibility until it happens. And when people are going away on holiday, you don't naturally think, unless you're somebody like me, you don't actually think, right, I need to isolate all of the angle valves, which are those taps into the wall, just in case the worst were to happen. It's one of those, isn't it? So it's a really difficult scenario to be able to deal with.
In the case of Dan's place, how did it all sort out? Did his flooring survive and whatnot?
It's actually in the end it was pretty much okay. I lent him, actually, I've got one of these extraction cleaners that we use because with a dog and 2 young kids, we need all mats and furniture cleaned on a ridiculously regular basis. So what he did was he used the sucking feature of that to be able to get the majority of the water out of the carpet. But he put down the most stunning solid wood flooring throughout his place, which had got covered. And luckily we got to it as well to help out, or the teams did, really quickly. And luckily, it hasn't buckled, which is the big worry in that scenario. So as it's turned out, we got away with this one, but horrific thing to happen.
Man, that's the worst case scenario when we talk about water leakage. What's your take on no water at all?
No water at all is almost worse than a leak, because with a leak, you've got the possibility to rectify it if you're around and isolate it quickly. If you've got no water, there is usually not much of a scenario where a DIYer can actually solve it unless they really know what they're looking at. So I would actually say no water is worse than a water leak, because with a water leak, you've got a chance of being able to isolate that yourself quite quickly, and there isn't a fundamental issue that's there. But there are so many different ways that you can end up with no water. The classic one is always, one way or the other, due to normally a lack of communication between husband and wife, the DEWA bill didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, if you imagine, the only time when DEWA have your details is at the point when you signed up your DEWA account, which can be many years ago, at which point you may well have moved on from your email address, your phone number. So they don't actually have the ability to let you know that you haven't paid your bill. At which point, they cut the DEWA. And the only thing you would know is if you looked at the sticker that they usually put on the outside of the DEWA cabinet. So that's number one. Always the first thing that our boys will ask, are you sure you've paid the DEWA bill? After that, there are so many different elements that would stop water coming. So the first one would be, and I'm going to take it in terms of the circuit, which comes from the DEWA supply. It then goes into your tank. Well, quite often the float valve in your tank gets stuck up. And in that situation, there is no water filling your tank, and therefore the pump tries to pump air, which it can't do. So failure number one. Failure number two, the pump doesn't work. That could be because the pump itself is dead, or the capacitor, which is kind of like the starter motor.
The capacitor. Those are always forgotten about.
They are. Next one, pressure kit, which is the part that turns the pump on and off. If that has failed, then again, you're getting no water. Next one is, we talked about leaks, didn't we? But leaks can happen at any location. As well as that, it may well be that you've got just a build-up. There's some properties in Dubai where for some reason they've used like standard steel or iron pipes in effect.
Really?
That rust over time. And over time, that rust can block the pipe. And in this situation, normally you would get a sign of there being rusty water first on both hot and cold, which can be there as well. And at that point, eventually that will go to a trickle, and normally it will go further. Another one that people don't think about, which is I've got water everywhere except for one particular tap. Well, there is a little gauze filter on the end of your tap that over time will get blocked with sand. And again, actually, that is a DIY job. All you need to do is unscrew it, which can be a little bit fiddly, clean it out, put it back, and everything will be right as rain again. But again, these are the things that people generally don't think about.
I mean, that sounds like all common sense and things to think about, generally speaking. What about going back to the rust and going back to the feed coming into the house? How often do you see problems between the piping that comes in from DEWA, it's already inside your property, up to the tank? Is that a pretty common failure as well, or not so much?
Yes. So the common failure is, and this one is the nightmare, and I'll explain why. The common failure is from the water meter, between the water meter and the tank. Yeah. Because what happens is, and the location is invariably quite similar in 9 times out of 10, which is the water meter is normally vertically mounted.
Right.
The pipe goes down the wall, and then it has an elbow, which then needs to go in the horizontal plane to your tank, whether it be above ground or underground. For some reason, that first elbow is normally where a leak would occur. And in that situation, you often won't see it because it's underneath your driveway until your whole driveway starts sinking, or you've spotted that your DEWA bill is getting extortionate. That one.
Oh, I lost you for a second there, Colin. You faded out on us. I see you talking, But I don't hear you talking. I can't hear you at all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonder what happened there. I've even got you connected via Ethernet because the traditional method of dove transport or pigeon transport hadn't been working so well. But as you know, I am in deepest, darkest Alcoves. So all it really takes is for one more person to go online and the whole area goes down. So apologies for that.
That's okay.
What I was just saying was...
you were talking about that elbow where you don't notice until your driveway starts to cave in or your bill is flying.
By that point, because it is post or it's after the water meter, DWA decides that is your consumption, and they've got a fair point. Yeah. But because you're not going to know about it for quite a while normally, people have ended up with bills for tens of thousands of dirhams, which is just horrific. And DWA are trying these days to be a bit more reasonable in those kind of circumstances. But in all truth, it is your consumption, even though it hasn't been useful consumption, which is where the problem usually occurs.
So what's the lifespan of some of these these pipes? I mean, I'm being selfish here in a sense and very self-serving in that I've been living in a place for 20 years. And the last thing I want is for my underground piping, which I presume is plastic, to give way.
That depends on a lot of variables, which is, first of all, what kind of pipe it is. The traditional UPVC, which is the one that you're most likely going to have, can get very brittle. Secondly, how exposed is it? Because they are, whilst they are UV resistant, they're not as UV resistant as many other types of pipe. Thirdly, how much pressure is there coming out of your pump? Obviously, higher the pressure, the more under stress it is. Fourthly, the compression that happens if where the pipe is. So, for instance, if it's in a driveway. Thirdly, the quality of that pipe that was originally provided. There is a particular development in Dubai that has a well-known substandard plastic pipe that was designed for both hot and cold. And yet every time that we go to this particular development over a hot water issue, they're like spaghetti. They've just completely collapsed.
Wow.
So all of these elements are there. Gut feel, James, is whilst if it was an exposed pipe, I would say 10 to 15 years, 20 years ago, in many respects, the quality was actually better for pipes than it is now for UPVC anyway. So I wouldn't be hugely worried right now. But if I was in an older property like yours, as I know you do, I would be keeping a fairly close eye on my DWA bill and that water meter when I know that nothing's running to make sure that it is fully stopping and not just allowing some water out.
There we go. And you know what that is? That is
10 Minutes with Colin.
I love it. I absolutely love it, Colin. We covered a whole bunch of ground there. I think that's an epic one. That's a keeper. That is absolutely a keeper. We got to put that on the replay. Hey,
that's what it's about, isn't it? Just trying to convey enough information to people so that, first of all, they don't get themselves in trouble from tackling things that are dangerous or have potential implications, but giving them enough info to know what to look for and to try and minimize wastage, which is the thing that really gets through to me more than anything. Whether we were talking earlier about bodged work, and again, it's wastage that for me, I want people to be spending their money on maintenance effectively. And really, if there's one thing that we hope that people take out from the We Will Fix It podcast, it's that with a bit of knowledge, hopefully you can avoid wasted spending.
I want to, in fact, leading on with the wasted spending, let's jump back into that whole area that we were talking about in the past, and we've talked about it several times. The issue that you guys constantly face when we're talking about air conditioning, and we've had this conversation before, Northern Hemisphere, summer's coming. In fact, I was just reading something today about Montreal, and they're saying, look, the summer is going to probably be brutal in Montreal, where, heat wave kind of thing, some of the hottest temperatures you get. And if you get 3 consecutive days where it's above 30 something, that becomes pretty brutal because most houses don't have air conditioning. And one of the big hospitals, Colin, and you could relate to this with NHS stuff, one of the big hospitals in downtown Montreal has 70 air-conditioned rooms only. And it's so obviously the operating theaters and that would be AC, but the rooms that patients are in, 70 are air conditioned. That's it.
But also imagine that scenario when you're already ill and hence in hospital, and then having to deal with that is just awful to think about. And
so that's what they're talking about with AC. They're saying, look, and heat temperatures and things to keep in mind. We've been talking about one of the issues that you guys face over at WeWillFixIt, where you're talking to folks and you're trying to save the money, and you're saying, hey, things you need to be looking at, and they're kind of looking at you skeptically, thinking you want to save me money. How is that anywhere near effective for you as a business?
It is. It's an odd one, this, which is for us, it is a no-brainer, but it doesn't seem logical. Our entire aim as a business and our business model works, which is we want customers to stay with us for their duration in Dubai. So by that, we mean not just in one property, but wherever you move, we want to stay with you and be your maintenance provider. That is how WeWillFixIt will do well. So what that means is you need to build up trust. You need to build up an understanding of the quality that you're delivering. But bottom line, you have to be value for money. So what we try to do is to not upsell people to the utter maximum that they could be doing with their air conditioning in this scenario, but instead give them a scenario where A, they understand what their ACs are all about. Secondly, give them options for being able to review. For instance, quite the standard one that we get, James, is I've got my master bedroom AC that has failed, and I got my AC serviced 4 months ago. Do I need to service my ACs again? Now, the traditional maintenance provider perspective on that is your AC should be serviced 3 times a year, meaning, yes, you're due for an AC service. However, that all boils down to how often do you use your ACs? What is the environment in which your ACs are operating? How sandy has it been? So all of these are variables. Well, our perspective on that is don't go for an AC service now. Our boys will come in, give you an accurate diagnosis on the AC that's broken, and we'll fix it at the same time. Whilst we're there, we will be able to have a look at the outdoor units on your roof and tell you how sandy they are. We can even show you pictures of them, which gives us an indication of the outdoor unit and whether or not that needs to be serviced. For the indoor unit, whilst we're fixing your unit, we'll have a look at your ducts and we can provide pictures of that. We'll have a look at the general condition of it, at which point we can let you know our recommendation on whether or not those units need to be serviced or duct cleaned or coil cleaned. However, what you're not doing is spending money getting work done on jobs that you don't need. And that way, it's an efficient spend. Well, for us, that's a bit of a no-brainer, and it's part of that trust. It's part of quality, because we prefer people to know when you've got something in the future that may be required, so that way you can plan for it, and it avoids that nightmare of, I thought I was going to be spending 1,000 dirhams, and now you're asking me for 7.
Yeah.
And that's not the way that people want to operate. Well, if you want to be a trusted provider and somebody that they're going to go to when they need maintenance, you need to understand that and work with it. And that's exactly what we want to do.
So people must be a little bit surprised when you give them the invoice and it's, half of what they expected.
Well, I think by the time we've got to invoice, we should have explained in some detail the way that we operate and the way that we hopefully it's very much our raison d'etre. And that is how all of our guys are briefed to operate. So we hope that from the first phone call with the British bookings team, they've explained that. And, conversely, if the conversation happened, it's been 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, or even longer, just get the AC service done because you definitely need it at that point. So that's a different conversation. But it's those in-between ones where really we try and save people cash where we can.
I think that's I just like the idea that you can call up the consulting team, the booking team, walk them through what's going on, and there's got to be a 10 to 20% chance in things as we're talking about. Forget the air conditioning, but let's talk about taps or other things where the folks on the other side of the phone might say, yeah, just unscrew that little end piece and clap out the sand, take out the sand, and it's going to work fine. And their thing is, well, what is there a cost for this, advice? And it's like, no. It's like, call us when you have another issue, but thank you very much. The whole concept of, have that conversation first, take a look at it. Is it something that you could actually possibly do yourself if you feel up to it? I just love that idea, which is kind of unusual here.
I think it's almost unique. Our bookings team are native English speakers, and our majority of the guys are tradesmen from different backgrounds. We've got plumbers, electricians, we've got builders actually, or ex-builders that work with us. And the idea of that is to provide that breadth of experience so that they are able to understand and then explain what can be done by yourself, either to get the diagnosis correct if people need us, or alternatively, like you say, for the jobs where it's not essential to get a maintenance team out, that they can do it themselves. And that has been, like, since day one, that's always been the way that we've operated.
I got another question for you. The hardware stores and things are starting to open up again. Have you had a chance to get out to any of them and poke around and see what's up and going on?
In all truth, no. My information on that comes secondhand through our purchasing team that have basically said almost everybody is good to go. We've just done the biggest warehouse clean out that we've done in our history.
Wow.
It took 12 man days to do it. So 2 days of 6 people, 2 complete skips. We sold off 6 ladders that were just lurking from years gone by. It's been epic. And really,
I needed to get one of your ladders. Oh, you got to keep me on the list next time. Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Oh, sorry, mate.
No problem. I got to give you a list of things I'm looking for. So.
Yeah, dude, that's a good idea. But it's so it's been really cathartic, and but it's been great as well just to get everything back. And as it should be, and efficient more than anything, with the amount of stuff that just ended up in the warehouse, it was just unbelievable. And finally, I had a little window of support staff that were available. Actually, bizarrely, it wasn't a demand-related thing. It's almost the support staff that were there to kind of assist with this, and the purchasing team. And we just cracked on through it, and they've done a fantastic job. But again, that's part of that efficiency. Yeah. So we do a lot of pick up and drop. So that way, when people have come to diagnose some work, if we're able to give a nice, clear diagnosis and cost, quite often customers say, yes, just do it fast as you can. At that point, we have a driver that is either dispatched to our suppliers to pick up the parts, which now, thank goodness, we're able to do again, and deliver it directly to the site, so that as the technician, for instance, is pulling out a compressor and has already cleaned all the lines, by the time he's ready to install the new compressor, we should be able to get it to them. So it's literally then a one-hit job to get from start to finish all the way through, which is the most efficient way for both ourselves and our customers. Alternatively, we know what we've got in the warehouse. They're able to lift it and use stock that we're holding here.
The reason I brought up the question about the hardware stores being open is I wanted to pick your brain on how people can pick stuff up, whether they're heading over to Ace or SpeedX, and summer's coming and they might be saying, hey, I need to get that new barbecue now, and I don't want to get a pickup truck to come and do it. I'm going to try and load it onto my Clio or my i10 from Hyundai, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on carrying stuff in some of our smaller cars, and maybe that's something I leave you with to think about how we do that. Yeah. Unless you've got some suggestions, because I know you're quite the DIY transport guy.
Well, I suppose so. Actually, a first start point, which is an important one, which is about Ace Hardware right now. Ace Hardware, as per the directives from the various ministries here, is currently operating on a 30% maximum capacity limit. They've installed a pre-booking scenario whereby they have two lines for people going into Ace Hardware. They have those that have pre-booked on their website and those that have just turned up, with obvious priority going to those that have pre-booked. Feedback as of yesterday was, if you go early at opening time, I'm so sorry, I don't know what their opening time is, then there is a very good chance you'll be able to walk straight in. But again, pre-booked to be doubly sure. Secondly, if you're going through peak periods, Friday, Saturday, lunchtime to mid-afternoon, expect a long wait. There were conversations that there were people waiting last weekend up to kind of 30, 40 minutes at the absolute. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Second thing, it sounds as though deliveries from various companies, not just Ace Hardware, are being delayed, as you would expect. So the idea of actually fitting things into your car is a very, very good idea. Think long and hard about what it is you're buying and whether or not it's feasible. One of the classics at the moment is above ground swimming pools that everybody is after right now.
Yeah.
The packing size for your decent size, and I mean kind of 12-foot swimming pool, Intex is the main brand people are buying right now, is about 1.80 meters, I believe. Well, we can fit that into our vans, and it just so happens that I did deliver one for a friend of mine, as we happen to be in the area of the supplier, and we're going, lucky fella, to his development anyway. But in a standard car, that's going to be a real problem. Now, how you would get 1.80 meters into a small car is, first of all, you need a little bit of luck on your side. So it needs to be a hatchback. It needs to have an absolute minimum of a half-foldable seat, and you need a front seat that can move forward or alternatively can go completely flat. So that way you can actually go from the dashboard all the way to the back. The Dubai police tend to be a little bit more strict than British police in terms of hanging stuff out the back of your car. So that is not something that I would recommend here on the whole.
Tying it on the roof?
But then you need a roof rack, really, unless you're perfectly happy to dent the roof of your Toyota Yaris. So that comes with its issues as well. But you would be amazed what you can get into cars. You know, before now, I've done dishwashers and washing machines. I did both in a Peugeot 206 once, which was the ultimate achievement of my life.
Not both at the same time?
Both at the same time.
Wow. Do you have pictures of that?
No, I haven't, which is ridiculous. We're going back probably, 12 years, I think.
Yeah.
I was helping a friend out with that one. But again, we could only get one person in that car. So luckily we had support vehicles for the rest of us. But it's just planning and also making sure that you don't take the whole family with you, because normally you can beg, steal, or borrow somebody to help you get it into your car. But if you don't physically have space because you've got too many occupants, then you haven't got a hope of being able to do that.
I guess use common sense, right? You don't want something that's going to fall out of your vehicles, fall off your vehicle, wreck your vehicle, and then in the process cause damage and harm to other people. And so common sense becomes that thing. And
think about weight as well. That's the other big problem.
Forget about that.
Yeah, it tends to be a real problem, but also the way you're driving as well. So I'm sure Glenn pipes on about this quite frequently, but braking distances, speed, thinking ahead for when you're either going to go around a corner or you've got to brake is really important as well when you're loading up a car fully.
Man. Colin, this has been yet another informative, entertaining, and educational program. We keep knocking these out of the park. And as I said, I'll have the exact number of shows we've done for our next podcast, because this was great. This was a lot of fun. And we've got way more to talk about as we start firing into the summer. People have got to start. I know I sent you some ideas before about indoor gardening and just getting some little projects going. Yeah. So maybe we have to crack on with some of those. I'm curious what you're doing with your kids as well. So that'll be some interesting fun.
Yes, me too. I must ask Natalie and see what she's doing with them. Oh dear, bad done.
Colin, I think we're going to wrap up this podcast as we do, and I look forward to doing it again really soon. You've been listening to the We Will Fix It show with Colin Thomas from We Will Fix It Dubai and Essential Maintenance Dubai right here on Podaholiks. That's Podaholiks with a K. You can find us on the socials. That's Podaholiks with a K, and at www.podaholiks.com. We love to hear from you, no matter how you're listening to us. Give us a rating, send us your comments, and by all means, please share the link. We'll talk to you again real soon. You've been listening to Podaholiks.